All right, welcome back into the Yappin' Football Podcast. As always, is myself, Dylan Mehl, and my guy Javon from Stats Over Feelings. And Week 7, sneaky, great week of NFL action. I didn't know that going into it, but we normally talk about 6 games, but these 5 games are a tier above everything else. So I cut it to just 5 when I sent you the list. I was like, no.
We're going to have a lot to say either way. So
I was like, we don't need to include a fake 6th game in here just for the number. Yeah. Let's talk about these 5 specific games. It's going to be fun. I want to start with the Texans and Packers. The Texans travel to Green Bay. They are 5-1. The Packers are 4-2. CJ Stroud versus Jordan Love, 2 potential MVP candidates, 2 young quarterbacks that are ascending in this league. The Texans, obviously, they've started off the season very good. They're 5-1. They just put up 41 points on the Patriots without Nico Collins. And the Green Bay Packers, Jordan Love played his best game this season, 4 touchdown passes versus the Arizona Cardinals. I think they might have put up 40 points too, close to it. So both of these teams coming in very good. They both have good defenses. We have good weapons: Diggs, Jaden Reed, Tank Dell, Romeo Dobbs, Josh Jacobs, Joe Mixon. So there's a lot going on in this game. You know, we could save the prediction, but what are you looking for in this game when you watch it? What are you hoping to see?
I mean, in this game in particular, we're going to learn a lot about both teams and their pass defense, man. Like you just said, there's offensive weapons everywhere. So this game, we're really going to see how good Xavier McKinney is. We're going to see how good Derek Stingley is. We're going to see a whole bunch of different types of packages. We're going to see how this defense can play against both defenses, how they can both play against elite offenses. And I think that's really is going to be what matters as the season goes down, as the season continues.
Yeah, anytime you get a game that you could look at and say, that could be the Super Bowl, it's possible that you're getting a good football game. Both of these teams in my tier list video on my channel are in Super Bowl contender tier, the top tier that you could possibly be in. What I'm looking for, win or lose, is a competitive football game. Both of these teams need to be able to compete with the other team here. They're very similar build teams, right? And I just mentioned it, but ascending quarterback, a new veteran running back to lead the running game, weapons all across the field, defenses with some primetime playmakers, Stingley, Xavier McKinney, good pass rushes with Will Anderson Jr. and Daniil Hunter. Then on the other side, you have Rashawn Gary and Kenny Clark, and you have good linebackers and Quay Walker and Al-Shair. Like, there's ballers on both sides of the ball for these guys. So the Texans offense versus the Packers defense, that's kind of got my interest just a little bit more because the Packers force you to turn the football over, and CJ Stroud typically doesn't turn the football over. Packers have the best turnover differential in the entire NFL. And not to say that the Texans don't need this win or don't want to win the game, but being in a division with the 4-1 Lions, the 5-0 Vikings, and the 4-2 Bears, like, every week is kind of must win for Green Bay. You look back on those 2 weeks where they won 2 games with Malik Willis, and we weren't thinking it at the time, but now it's like, wow, that saved their season almost, potentially. Like, when we get to the end of the year, if they get into the playoffs by 1 game over the Bears or the Lions or the Vikings, whoever it may be, we're going to be like, damn, those Malik Willis games, man, they really freaking mattered.
And they traded for him late in the offseason, if I'm not mistaken. That was like an end of the offseason type of move. Okay, we need somebody in here with some type of potential who can run this offense. And they got the right backup quarterback, especially since they knew how to utilize his strengths and how to limit his weaknesses from being shown throughout the game.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll be interested to see if this Packers defense can force Stroud into mistakes, because we know it's very hard to do it. Brian Flores for the Vikings did get Stroud to throw 2 interceptions versus the Vikings defense earlier this season. So it's not that it's impossible, but it's very hard. The other side of the coin, Jordan Love has a little Brett Favre, a little erraticness to him. The touchdown pass that he had to Romeo Doubs, the second one, where he's just throwing it off of his back foot, and the Arizona DB just doesn't even turn around.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're getting away with that throw with Derek Stingley and
Yeah.
Kamari Lassiter and those guys. It's not that I don't believe Jordan Love could play in big games, because I certainly know that he can. We watched it versus Dallas. He played good in that game versus San Francisco. But if you remember how that game ended, it was on a Jordan Love interception, crossbody on a throw he didn't need to make.
Yeah.
We've seen Jordan Love, be a little willy-nilly with the ball and willing to throw it away and have that gunslinger mentality. In a big spot like this versus a quarterback like CJ Stroud, who very rarely turns the ball over, the turnover differential here, if Jordan Love throws 1 to 2 picks and CJ throws none, and that's the only stat I know from that game, I think it could tell who the victor is.
I mean, yeah, that's 100% true. And we kind of gave him the pass, in that playoff game against the Niners, because it was his first year as a starter.
Nobody thought they'd be there.
Young. Yeah, he's really young. We're going to give him a pass because, no one expected him to be this good, this fast, regardless anyway. But now, he has actual expectations now, man. And like you said, they're in a very tough division, and he can't turn the ball over. But I do think one thing they have this year that they didn't really have last year is they're going to be able to hand the ball off to their running back 15 to 20 times.
Yep.
They're going to have a balanced offensive attack. And same with the Texans, too. They didn't really have much of that last year either. So like you said, these teams are really built more similar than people think on offense and defense. Of course, Houston has a little bit more star power on offense, but
these were two, I don't want to say sleeper picks, but they were, the wise guy, the smart guy, the guy who's better than everybody at fantasy football in his mind. Yeah, Texans, Packers, those are my teams. And progression's not always linear in the NFL. These two teams seem to be progressing at a good speed. Is Josh Jacobs or Joe Mixon more of an X factor for you in this game? Who do you think plays a bigger role?
Oh, I think it has to be Joe Mixon, man. Without Nico Collins, we've seen them dominate. When Joe Mixon has a good game, their offense seems to be basically unstoppable for the Texans, man. So I think if Joe Mixon gets you 120 scrimmage yards, they can win this game by 2 scores. I think that's on the board, 100%.
For me, I think I almost lean Jacobs as more of an X factor, because I think if you can assert yourself in the ground game, it limits the opportunities for Jordan Love to feel like he has to force the ball and has to make a play. If the Packers can get up early in this game, run the ball, control the clock, and play with a lead, I think it's way more likely they win than if we're in a shootout. In a shootout, I would lean Texans because I trust CJ Stroud more as a decision maker throughout the entirety of the football game. If it's close, and I had to bet on one of these two guys to make a mistake, I'd bet Jordan Love. And Packers fans, don't hear what I'm not saying here. I think the guy's a top 10 quarterback in the league, and I'd want him to be the quarterback of my team. The problem is, he's playing another top 10 quarterback, and the margin of error is so thin when you're playing another really great team. I think both teams should take this game very seriously, though, because they both won in the wild card weekend last year. The Texans not as surprising as the Packers, but then both got bounced in the divisional round by a loaded roster. You need the experience of big games. Treat it like a big game, and you'll gain more experience here. But when it comes time to picking, are you taking the Texans or are you taking the Packers?
I'm going to roll with the Texans, man. I think they're going to play a complete game. I think they're going to be a little bit more disciplined. And like you said, I don't think they're going to turn the ball over. So, and the fact that I believe that they can establish the run game, I've seen Josh Jacobs this year get shut down or at least get off to a very slow start. I don't think the Texans are going to do that. So,
yeah, I also lean Texans here. All offseason, I clamored about this Texans team, how I thought they were the biggest threat to the Kansas City Chiefs. I still think they're one of two. Baltimore is certainly up there for me. They're better than I expected them to be offensively, but I still think Houston is up there with the likes of Kansas City, Baltimore, and now Buffalo after that Amari Cooper trade.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got an NFC North rivalry game here. The 4-1 Detroit Lions take on the 5-0 Minnesota Vikings. Whoever wins this game is in first place in the NFC North. And a win for the Lions here would probably be more meaningful than a win for the Vikings. Obviously, big game feel for both teams, but for Detroit to reestablish control of the NFC North and get a game up in the tiebreaker for the Vikings, I feel like would be huge. And I'm not sure who is at more of an advantage here. The Vikings coming off of a bye week or the Lions coming off of a 47-9 victory. I don't know which spot
I'd rather had 2 bye weeks.
I'm not sure which spot I would rather be in because one team is well rested and got the game plan, but the other team's coming into this game so hot and feels so dominant. Yeah. Where would you rather be? Would you rather be coming off the bye, well rested and extra game plan, or come off riding the high? I almost think I'd rather be the Lions.
I'd rather come off the bye week, man, because I just feel like when you beat down the team that you thought was supposed to be, and plus they kind of had a little bit of tension. There was a little bit of beef over there. Yeah. But when you beat down the team that was projected to be a 10-win team this year and you demolished them, like I just feel like the next week it's very possible they come out a little bit sluggish, a little bit slow. It's almost like I kind of expect it. You can't do that with a team like the Vikings, who have rattled Brock Purdy and CJ Stroud this year. So imagine if they rattle Jared Goff. Like, how are we going to feel about the Vikings then? I think the Vikings kind of do have a lot to prove. Like, this is their "I'm here" statement if they win this game.
Yeah, and it would be a commanding lead in the NFC North. Regardless of the Packers game outcome, they would at least be up a game and a half on everybody after this if they got this win here, and they'd have an advantage over Detroit, who, right now I lean that these are the two best teams in the NFC North. I think the Vikings top to bottom have played the most complete football this year, and I think the Lions have a top 2 offense. That being said, can Brian Flores get pressure on Jared Goff without sacrificing coverage is going to be interesting, because Detroit does have so many weapons, and Jared Goff, while when under pressure is not a good quarterback, is a good quarterback against the blitz. And there is a difference there, because not every time that you blitz does it get home. So if you are sending extra men at Jared Goff, now there's relying on a lot of the rest of the guys to be able to keep contained Amon-Ra, keep contained Jameson Williams, Gibbs out the backfield, Laporta. So I'm interested to see the chess match there between Ben Johnson and Brian Flores. I'm also interested to see, do the Lions generate any single pass rush without Aiden Hutchinson? Because sneaky, when he left that game, they stopped generating a pass rush against Dak. Now, the Cowboys just kind of stunk, but if you give Sam Darnold in this Vikings offense time, and Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison time for their routes to develop, we could see the Vikings have a pretty big offensive outpouring, I feel, on this Lions defense.
I feel like you're basically asking the same questions for both the teams. Which team can generate more pressure? So you think that could be a game deciding factor?
I do, because no shade at Darnold or Goff, but they need a good situation to be successful in the NFL. These aren't guys that you could put into Patrick Mahomes' situation right now with a bad receiving core, no run game, and an aging tight end as their best player and be like, go be 5-0. I just don't think either of those guys are 5-0 on the Chiefs. Now, we don't need to live in this world of hypotheticals, because they're not. But in terms of this game, these are two stacked rosters facing each other. And the quarterbacks are generally viewed as some of the not as strong parts of these teams. So who can make the other quarterback more uncomfortable? Who can throw the other team's offensive game plan off, I think will be the victor in this game. And both teams, though, could look to run the football. We know what David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs are. Aaron Jones, though, probably not back for this game. Ty Chandler,
They signed, they traded for Cam Akers, so I mean,
with the Lions, the Vikings run game probably isn't going to beat you. Do you just try and generate a pass rush with 3 or 4 and drop back into coverage and worry more about the weapons? Maybe.
They're going to have to. I mean, and one thing big that nobody's really talking about is I think TJ Hawkinson is back. So I'm pretty sure he's projected to play this week. So with that being said, that's another
had to
weapon.
Get that revenge on Detroit for trading him still.
yeah, man. So that's another, weapon other than Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison that you can't really game plan for because he hasn't played with Sam Darnold at all this year. You don't know what effect he's going to have, especially his first week back. So, I mean, we're going to see, man. But I don't know how I feel about Sam Darnold slinging the ball 35, 45 times. I don't care if Justin Jefferson is lined up across from you. I don't trust that against this defense. I mean, their secondary has looked vulnerable at times, the Lions, but I just feel like they're going to have to be able to establish the run in order to really beat this team.
I don't want you to give away your winner here quite yet, but do you think it's more likely we see this game end in a shootout or both teams less than 20 points?
I don't see a world where it has to be a shootout. I don't see a defense good enough to hold the Lions to less than 20 points. I don't even think the Chiefs can
the
do
Vikings
that.
have been that defense this year, though. They have made the Niners offense look like it was in hell. The Texans offense looked like it was in hell. They had the Packers under wraps for 2 quarters. The Packers did start to figure some things out. And I wonder, I didn't go back and watch the film on that game, but the Packers figured some things out in the second half against that Vikings defense. And then the Vikings had a bye week.
Yeah. I mean,
now that there's been film on this team, do we kind of see a little bit, not exposed, but some chinks in the armor of the Vikings defense that's been so dominant to open the season? Or was that just Jordan Love's ability to make plays that, again, we talked about Stroud and Love being top 10 quarterbacks. Goff is probably fringe there, but he's not making the plays that Love and Stroud are.
Yeah, and I mean, I just think it's going to have to be a shootout, man. Like, I mean, there's been different scenarios. Like when they played the 49ers, of course, CMC didn't play. And, but this is a fully healthy Lions team. Like you said, they're coming in last week, beating down a team that was supposed to have double-digit wins, beat them by – they could have dropped 60 on them if they weren't trying to throw the ball to offensive linemen. So, I mean
Jared Goff didn't even play in the fourth quarter. Hendon Hooker was out there.
I mean, come on. I've seen this Lions team win a game where they the ball never touched the ground, okay?
Yeah.
So they have an incomplete pass the whole game.
The offense has been really, really great.
Yeah.
For the Lions, what's the game plan against Justin Jefferson? Because not that anybody could guard him, but they really don't have any corner that could even sniff guarding Jefferson.
There's no shot they go man on him. I mean, I would expect Addison to have a big game.
So we're going to see a lot of zones, and if it's man, I would imagine Brian Branch is going to have one eye peeled on Justin Jefferson pretty much every one of those man looks. But I'll ask you, who are you taking to win this game in Minnesota?
I know I said all of that about the Lions, but I think the Vikings are going to sneak this one, man. The Lions secondary, like I'm not taking Sam Darnold over Jared Goff, but the Lions secondary, I don't trust it, man. And I've seen Justin Jefferson is a game wrecker. Okay. And at the end of the game, I'm going to trust the Vikings defense to make a stop more than I would trust the Lions defense to make a stop without Aiden Hutchinson to generate a pass rush, especially. So, I mean, the only thing is the run game, man. Like, if they can't establish
without Aaron Jones.
Yeah,
this offense feels like it's set to be one-dimensional. But Ty Chandler had a couple good games last year, so I'm interested to see what kind of production they get out of him.
I mean, they just traded for Cam Akers. He's probably going to get 10 to 12 carries. I mean, and that's
looked pretty bad in Houston.
Yeah, he did. So we're gonna see. He came back to old Minnesota. Hopefully, he can leave his mark on this game because I think he's gonna be the determining factor on whether this team can hang in with the Lions defense or not.
Yeah, I think that after this game, there's going to be some pressure on Detroit to go make a deal for an edge rusher. I don't think that, people have floated out Max Crosby and Myles Garrett. I don't think those guys are leaving their teams.
Especially Myles. Hell.
Zadarius Smith, Hassan Reddick, those are names I'd look for to end up in Detroit. And I think that they're going to need to go get them. I'm taking Minnesota to win this game as well. One, like you said, I trust their defense more. But two, I just think Darnold's going to have enough time with these weapons that he'll be able to pick the Lions secondary apart. Terrion Arnold isn't great right now as a rookie. Nobody in the league can guard Justin Jefferson, and Brian Branch can't be everywhere at once, especially if Hawkinson is playing. There's just going to be too much offense, and I just don't think the defensive line of Detroit is able to get home. The Vikings actually have a pretty solid offensive line as well, so it's not even like that's a poor unit. Give me Minnesota to win this game as well. We then have a Super Bowl rematch as the Kansas City Chiefs, coming off of their bye week, travel to San Francisco to take on the 49ers, who are coming off of a mini bye. They just came off a pretty impressive Thursday Night Football win over the Seattle Seahawks. They're back to 3-3, back to 500. Kansas City is 5-0, but Kansas City has really been ravaged with injuries, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Hollywood Brown before the season even started, Isaiah Pacheco midway through the season, Rashee Rice. This team is down to really, looking somewhat similar to the 2022 Chiefs with Juju and McCole Hardman. They have Worthy. Kelsey's 2 years older now than then.
Yeah.
And Kareem Hunt is back on the squad. So
would have thought.
This is an interesting thing. Some people in the media, and I'm not going to lie, I just saw the clicks, so I'm not going to say names, but I saw reports today that people were saying that they thought this current Chiefs team is better than last year's and that the 49ers are worse than last year's. And I agree with the part that the 49ers right now are worse than the 49ers last year. But I would not say this Chiefs team that is going to be playing this week is better than the Chiefs team that was just in the Super Bowl.
Nah, L'Jarius Sneed is not even on that defense, and that's all.
I know, no L'Jarius Sneed. Willie Gay is no longer on that defense. Yeah. You don't have Rashee Rice out there. Jerick McKinnon was pretty sneaky good for the Chiefs last year as a scat back. He's not there anymore. I don't know. I would take last year's Chiefs to beat this year's Chiefs. Now, the fact that we get to compare which Chiefs team is better says, yeah, the Chiefs are still good. They have Mahomes, they have Kelsey, they have Reed. They'll be fine.
Yeah.
The 49ers, it's interesting. Without Christian McCaffrey, their red zone offense has been really, really bad. But the Chiefs actually have a pretty bad red zone offense at the moment, too, because especially with losing their weapons. So I think this is a sneaky, we could see a lot of field goals game. I don't think that we're due for a shootout here. I mean, how do you see this game script playing out?
Hey, I think this could be a shootout. It just seems like this year, all the games that are supposed to be, low scoring or high scoring, and all the games that are supposed to be high scoring or low, it's just a backwards year, man. So the Chiefs haven't allowed over 30 points since they played your Eagles in the Super Bowl, dude. And we're going back almost 2 years. Okay, that is incredible. But at the same time,
hang our hat on that stat.
That honestly is like one of the most impressive things I've ever heard in my life when I heard that on the radio a couple weeks ago. But Patrick Mahomes hasn't thrown for over 3 touchdowns and 0 interceptions in like 17 games. Okay, so those can kind of cancel each other out right there. And then, I don't know. Usually, when there's a Super Bowl matchup, usually the team that won the Super Bowl usually ends up winning that matchup. But I do feel like Brock Purdy is going to be – this is going to be a big game for him. When he's negotiating his contract, he's going to look back to this game. I know they just put him in the Super Bowl, but – they're going to look at this game as an example, too. Can you beat the big dogs? Patrick Mahomes is not playing good this season. That offense is missing a lot. I mean, there's just talks about the Bills just had to release MVS. And they're saying, we might have to bring MVS back, just run back with the whole same gang from a couple years ago because they had to release MVS to sign Amari Cooper. So, I mean, they're missing a lot of weapons over there in Kansas City. So,
Yeah, I thought that missing out on Amari Cooper really stunk for Kansas City. Interesting Patrick Mahomes stat here for you. In his career versus the 49ers, he is 4-0. He's thrown for over 1,300 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. He's pretty historically owned these guys in his career. And that's spanning from 2019 to now. They've played twice in the Super Bowl, twice in the regular season. Mahomes has won all 4 matchups. So, we'll see. It feels like another one of those, do you bet against Patrick Mahomes situations? Probably not, but it's
I don't think the game is that meaningful. I don't think it's that meaningful just yet.
No. I don't think it's super meaningful, but I do think Super Bowl rematches have a little bit of juice on them. I think this game should mean a lot for the 49ers. You are 3-3 battling for your life right now. Home game against a team who ripped your hearts out last year. If you can't get up for this game, I don't know what game you can get up for if you're a San Francisco 49er. But Andy Reid also has a really great historic track record off of a bye, and Patrick Mahomes has owned this team. So there is signs that both teams should be up for this game, be ready for this game, and ready to win. I don't know. Who's your X factor in this game for the 49ers? Who has to have, if I told you the 49ers won, who would you think had the big game for them?
I think it would be Fred Warner. Because in the past, he has been getting torched by Travis Kelce, man. Travis Kelce this year does not have a touchdown yet. Travis Kelce this year has been very underwhelming. And like you said, he may not have a lot of great games left in the tank, and he's probably saving it for the playoffs. But, man, I just feel like it would pay dividends if Fred Warner can actually finally lock up Travis Kelce for once, because every single game Travis Kelce has played the 49ers, he has torched them historically.
Yeah.
So I think he'll be the biggest one.
I could see him as well getting an interception on Mahomes. Mahomes, 6 passing touchdowns, 6 interceptions this year. So Mahomes hasn't exactly been playing his best football. For me, if you told me the 49ers won this game, I think I would say that Deebo Samuel had a big game for a couple of reasons. One, he can affect the game in the receiving game and in the rushing attack. He is a dual threat weapon for this team. But 2, their red zone offense has been really bad. They have missed Christian McCaffrey. Someone's got to produce. We know Deebo can break tackles. We know he can be effective out of the backfield. I like Jordan Mason. I don't know if he plays this week, but even if he does, he hasn't been effective in the red zone for this team. George Kittle just had 2 touchdowns, but Seattle's defense was pretty banged up compared to Kansas City's. I think I would say Deebo Samuel has to have a good game. Brock Purdy's been pretty good this year. I'm interested to see, what he does. Pretty famously, you've said multiple times during the Super Bowl, the 49ers seemed like they had Purdy on a little bit of a leash. They weren't willing to let him rip it. They didn't have the trust in him. It was more trust in McCaffrey and the Shanahan offense. No McCaffrey. So if they win this game, Brock Purdy's going to have a good game. So we'll see what he's like with the leash off in this one. But Super Bowl rematch, Chiefs 49ers, who do you have winning?
I think the 49ers are going to edge this one out. If you can't beat the Chiefs now, dude, you're not going to beat this team.
Yeah.
If you can't beat them now as constructed, without their star running back, with their tight end having the worst season probably in his entire career, or probably since his rookie year, but most likely his entire career. I mean, the defense is still top 5 in the NFL, but man, you had to hang your hat on the 49ers being able to get stops, and you're going to have to run the ball regardless of who's back there in the backfield. But I'm going to take the 49ers here, because if you can't beat them now, I just have hope, man. I have a little bit of faith.
No, okay? I definitely understand where you're coming from there. The 49ers are favored by 1.5 to win this game.
Really?
And I'm sorry, I can't pick against an underdog Mahomes. There's only once in a blue moon where you get Patrick Mahomes at plus money. And my money will be on Patrick Mahomes at plus money. You give me odds against Mahomes, and I get to make money betting on him. yeah, give me Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. I don't know if it's Juju. I don't know if it's Worthy. I don't know if it's Kareem Hunt somehow. I don't know if Travis Kelce. I'm just going to go with Andy Reid off a bye and Patrick Mahomes as an underdog. He improves to 5-0 versus the 49ers in my book. The New York Jets, Sunday Night Football, they'll be traveling to Pittsburgh to take on your Steelers. And I know, everybody wants to hear us talk about the Davante Adams acquisition, and we'll get there. But as you're a Steelers fan, I have to give you the floor and ask you, are you ready for Russ to cook?
Dude, I don't even know what the deal is there. Like, how good? Like, I can't even say it was because of training camp, because Russ barely played in training camp. I don't know what's going on over there, but I'm going to trust Coach Tomlin. I don't know why. The quarterback, Justin Fields, is 4-2, would be 5-1.
Could Justin Fields have done anything to keep this job? That's how I feel seeing this change.
Nah, he could have definitely. I mean, the first 3 games, he didn't even throw the ball across the middle of the field. And then the next 2 games after that, George Pickens probably has like less than 3 catches or 4 catches because he's not pushing the ball up the sidelines at all the last 2 games. So they're hoping Russell Wilson can put those 2 together, and maybe the fact that he can't scramble as good as Justin Fields can offset with his passing game. That's the only thing and the only reason I can
do you like the move? Have you come around to it? Because when it first happened and I texted you, you were not happy. You couldn't believe it.
I don't see what you gain. Even if you win this game against the Jets, which, I mean, shit, they have Davante Adams now. I mean, I don't know how this game is going to go. Who knows? But
I know how this game's going to go. Yeah, I don't know who's going to win. The final score is going to be about 20-17 because that's how every Jets and every Steelers game has gone this year. So I'd be shocked if it was anything other than that. It'll be fun.
It'll be fun in the fourth quarter. Okay, you could turn the game on when it's damn near midnight your time or whatever, 11 p.m. your time.
That was just because of the thunderstorm and that Cowboys-Steelers game being pushed back. But, the Russell Wilson move, I think you brought up some good points. I think a lot of people are caught up in the fact that the Steelers were 4-2 with Justin Fields. And it's not to say that Justin Fields didn't have some good games. I thought that loss to the Colts, he actually played really well. But it's not like the offense has been special and amazing,
Hasn't at all.
And it's not like the Steelers don't have a history of winning with bad quarterback play at this point. Kenny Pickett, Duck Hodges, Mason Rudolph. Just maybe don't give the quarterback credit for the wins for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And if Russ stinks and you lose, you could always go back to Justin, but it's worth seeing if this guy can elevate your offense. My big concern with Russell Wilson is what he does to the run game. And I know that sounds crazy, but now teams don't have to worry about Fields keeping the ball. Exactly. Now it's slow Najee Harris is getting the ball, and maybe Jaylen Warren gets a couple of big plays, but I wonder how this rushing attack is going to look because there's a lot that goes into it. Arthur Smith, the new offensive coordinator this year, generally improves rushing attacks for teams. Pittsburgh's rushing attack has looked pretty decent this year. But Justin Fields and having a mobile quarterback also improves rushing attacks. So where does the majority of the credit lie? We should find out.
Yeah. And if you're Justin, man, it's going to have to bother you that, you went 4-2. If it wasn't for a 4th and goal game-winning touchdown by Dak Prescott, you would be 5-1 right now in first place in the AFC North. Like you said, if I'm Justin, I'm thinking you're thinking, what more could I have done? I'm sorry I don't throw for 300 yards a game or whatever.
When you traded for him, is that what you're there's no way that they were expecting that. They didn't think, we got Patrick Mahomes coming to town. The Bears just gave him up. You knew his limitations when you traded for him. I think in terms of getting Pickens going and maybe getting some of these receiving options going, Russ could be better for that. But I don't know if the offense as a whole gets better. I think that Pickens has a better time out there. And I think if you're a fantasy football player, you'd rather Russ out there if you have Pickens than Fields. But if you're a Steelers fan, I just don't. It's not like Russell Wilson was winning games in Denver. Again, there's a reason they were willing to let him go as well. It's not like this guy is about to come in and change the franchise now.
I listen, I can't lie and say that I watched a lot of Broncos games the past couple of years. I can't lie and say that. So I don't know how good this man is. I can only go
there's a reason they weren't on.
Yeah, so it's like I can only go off of, in training camp. They say he has some chemistry with the receivers. I mean, a lot of people were expecting our rookie Roman Wilson to be a very big playmaker in this offense, and he played like a handful of snaps in his first game of the year last week.
Haven't seen him. Haven't heard his name.
Yes, I mean, last week was his first game. He's been hurt. So it's like, I want to see, but I just don't want Russ to stink it up. And now Justin gets back in the game. Feels like he has to force it.
How short of a leash does Russ have? Do you think they give him multiple games here, or do you think? I mean, if say theoretically the Jets win this game 20-3, is Russ benched? Couldn't even score a touchdown and get at it. Well,
he has to be.
So I'm not. If the Jets win 20-17, does Russ get another week?
Listen, I think if it's 20-17 or 20-3. I wouldn't give him another week, but he's going to get another week because next week we have the Giants and then we have a bye, and then that's when the season gets hard.
So maybe you give him 2 weeks and evaluate at the bye week, I guess.
They're probably going to give him three games.
We'll see.
They're probably, knowing Coach Tomlin, he doesn't just pull the,
he just pulled the plug on Justin.
Yeah, I mean, even he got 6 games. So
the Jets traded for Davante Adams, and I'll keep it short. I thought this was great for them. A lot of people didn't think this was great for them. A lot of people gave it pushback and said same old Jets. And I'm not here to tell you that the Jets are going to win a Super Bowl. I don't think they're in that 4-team tier of Buffalo, Baltimore, Houston, and Kansas City. But I think they're right there. This move not only is great because Davante Adams is a top 10, top 15 wide receiver in the NFL. And when you bring in a talent like that, of course, your offense is going to get better. But the trickle-down effect, now either Davante Adams or Garrett Wilson is going to be guarded majority by cornerback 2s. Now Allen Lazard gets to be a wide receiver 3. Now with all these passing weapons, teams can't stack the box against Breece Hall and Braylon Allen. Like, the whole flow of the offense should roll better. This isn't just, putting a new paint job on your car. This is upgrading the transmission, which will be better for everything else in the vehicle. You're the engineer, not me. But point being, like, this is a move that has trickle-down effects and should make the offense as a whole better. And we've talked about this at length. In the red zone, you have to convert. Versus Buffalo, the Jets were 1 for 4 in the red zone. You know what makes your red zone offense better? Davante Adams.
That is
if
true.
They just scored 1 touchdown there, they could have beaten Buffalo. Now, Buffalo also got better bringing in Amari Cooper, so I'm not saying this move closed the gap there because I think the Bills did enough to keep the gap the same, even with the Jets getting Amari Cooper. But a top 10 defense, again, if you could just get this offense to middle of the pack, the Jets will be a playoff team.
I mean, we'll see, man. I think this week is must win. If they don't win this week,
has to be.
It's over. Like, it's over before this Davante Adams crusade.
Well, these are the kind of games that you do have to win, and no shade to your Steelers, but the Jets got some tougher games on the schedule down the road.
Yeah, they have to win. You can't fall to 2-5. You're not going to make the playoffs with the Steelers 5-2 and you're 2-5. You got the Ravens. You got so many other teams.
And you'll have the Chargers that are in a good spot. Obviously the Texans are going to win the South. It looks like Kansas City's going to win the West. You have Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Buffalo. Now you're down to 1 spot, and it's like Cincinnati. They got some easy games coming up. Miami might have Tua back. Do the Broncos make a push?
And at the end of the day, you're 2-5. So, or you would be 2-5 if you lose. But I just think the Jets, man, I just think they're so dysfunctional, dog. I don't know.
I don't understand why they fired Robert Saleh still.
Exactly.
And we don't need to talk about it all season, but the defense looked a little worse.
Dude, listen. If there was one game where you needed Justin Fields to start, it would be this game, because when you watch the Jets defense, like, what's the name? Zay Davis or Zay? What's his name?
Ray Davis.
Ray Davis, my fault. I'm sorry. But yeah, Ray Davis. If Ray Davis can run circles around this defense, man, imagine what Justin Fields and Najee Harris off a 100-yard game could do. I would love to see that. Okay. But I mean, this Jets defense got worse. You fired the wrong problem. Then your quarterback is making all the decisions for your team. Sure, this is a 1-year rental, basically.
I mean, they did change who's calling plays, and there was a clear effect. There was way more play action, way more motion. The concern still for New York, especially in this game, is does the offensive line hold up? Because it's kind of reminds me of, do you remember when the Bengals were set to, they had Joe Burrow and they had to choose Penei Sewell or Jamar Chase, and all the memes were going around about why they should pick Penei Sewell, because it was like Jamar Chase is down the field, but Joe Burrow's getting sacked because he doesn't have time to get him the ball. Ultimately, those ended up being wrong, but that could be something similar to what we're seeing here with the Jets. Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams are open down the field, but Aaron Rodgers is on the ground because TJ Watt is just a freak.
I mean, we're gonna see, man. And one thing about the Steelers that's been keeping us in all 4 of the games that we've won is penalties. And we saw how many penalties they had down the stretch in that Buffalo Bills game, and it ended up being one of the biggest reasons why they lost, besides kicking, decision making by Aaron Rodgers on that last throw to Mike Williams. But
he threw Mike Williams under the bus big time. You see, Mike Williams didn't practice today for personal reasons. He's getting cut. He's getting cut.
Yeah, I mean, or traded. I mean, I don't know
who's traded for him. He's getting cut.
Maybe you can get a 6.
And then he'll go to the Chiefs, and then in a big playoff game, he'll have a catch somehow.
Have like 150, like Juju did. So we're gonna see. But when it comes to the Jets, man, it's like everybody was hyping this team up going into this season. Mike Williams was supposed to be that guy. This offense was supposed to be unstoppable. So, and now it's a complete failure. And instead of trying to work your way through it, you fire your head coach, which was not the problem. And you're right.
And it's not to say that Saleh is a great head coach.
Yeah.
Because again, don't hear what we're not saying. But the defense was good. He's the defensive coach. The offense is the problem. Thank God you took play calling away from Nat Hackett. But in my opinion, that's all you had to do. The firing of Saleh just felt like unnecessary.
It just shows you what the priorities are in that organization. The priority is Aaron Rodgers.
In that situation, the Jets are still just going to be the Jets. But who's winning? Are you picking your Steelers?
I'm picking the Steelers. I'm picking the Steelers. Not even a question. Not even a question. Let Russ cook. No, I'm joking. No. TJ Watt will have a game because he's going to line up against Morgan Moses or whatever, and he's going to torch.
So I'll say this. The thing that I say about the Steelers is they play in these unwatchable, really gross football games. And I'm going to pick them in the majority of them because typically they have the experience edge in those games. The Jets have been in unwatchable, gross football games all season. So in terms of experience, that's kind of what both of these teams have been through.
But they haven't won.
They haven't won, but they've been in those games.
Yeah.
My point is, when it's close, like we said, when it's 17-17 in the fourth quarter, neither team's going to be like, shit, we haven't been here all season. Like, I would love to see the Vikings in that situation. Does Sam Darnold come through with the pressure on the line and the game on the line?
Might see it this week.
Might see it this week, but both of these teams, have been in that spot. I don't know if the calf is 100% for Russ, but
it's supposed to be a minor injury in training camp.
I don't know. Something about the karma of that move strikes me as it's going to cost them this game. And then it's going to be like, why did we bench Justin?
Dude, I hope for that reason alone that he's just atrocious in the first half. The second half.
Yeah, I'm taking the Jets, and you could let me hear it. The comments can let me hear it. They're just the team that I just won't quit. And it's crazy. And last year, I was completely out on them. This year, I bought in. I drank the Jets juice, and I'll tell you what, if they lose this game, I'm out.
Okay.
If they go to 2-5, I'm out. I'm done. Yeah. I'm done with the Jets. I think the Jets are favored in this game. The Jets are
the Steelers are at home. So.
The Jets are 2.5-point favorites on the road. Yeah. Monday Night Football, we got Ravens, we got Buccaneers. We actually have 2 Monday Night Football games, but the Monday Night Football game is Ravens-Buccaneers. 4-2 Ravens. They've won 4 in a row. In my opinion, Lamar Jackson is the MVP of the league, but he's playing against the guy who's probably in second place in Baker Mayfield, who leads in a lot of passing categories. The Buccaneers are coming off of hanging 51 on the New Orleans Saints, who aren't a terrible defense. I know it was a terrible performance, but the Buccaneers are rolling offensively. The Ravens are rolling offensively. This is one of those games where you look at it and you go, that could be the Super Bowl. Now, I don't think it's as likely as Texans, Packers, or Chiefs, Niners, but it's one of 3 games this week that you could look at and be like, we could get there.
Can you imagine Baker Mayfield in the Super Bowl?
It just feels like one of those wonky years, especially in the NFC. I mean, it could be Darnold, it could be Baker, it could be Goff. Like, it doesn't, I don't, it was Purdy last year. Like,
somebody's going to have to make it.
You don't need to have the superstar quarterback to make it out of the NFC. We've seen that. Tampa's got a good defense. Chris Godwin in the slot. I mean, hello. He has been absolutely insane. You still have Mike Evans. Bucky Irving is a real running back for this team. Rashad White is good in the passing game, but he was terrible as a rusher. You solved that problem. You have like your own little dollar store version of Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery now. But it's a good rushing attack. It's a good offense. And I think a lot of people are just going to kind of count them out because it's Baker and the Buccaneers, and Baltimore's favored by 3.5 points in the road in this game. But I don't know, man. I like Bake Show. I like the Buccaneers. I think their passing game is fun. And the way to beat the Ravens, man, you could throw on them. And Baker's been throwing on everybody all year with these weapons.
Yeah. You're not even lying, man. Chris Godwin, I got that boy in fantasy. He had especially this past performance he just had, legendary.
I think Mike Evans got hurt and missed some of that game, and Chris Godwin said, "I put the team on the back."
Dude, I mean, Baker Mayfield, man. If he wins this game, he has to be the front runner for MVP.
I think whoever wins this game is front runner for MVP.
Yeah,
I mean, that's how I view it, because it's not like the Vikings are 5-0, and it's more of a team impressive thing, I think, than Darnold.
Yeah, 100%. But a lot of people kind of just gave the division to Atlanta. But I mean, geez, Louise, man, Baker and the Buccaneers are right there, man. And they could end up winning it. Who knows?
And if they won that coin toss in Atlanta,
we'll see. We don't even know exactly. So I mean, I don't know how to feel about the Buccaneers, man. I don't really know how to feel about them because it just feels like
I think you're going to know how to feel about them after this game. I think you mentioned it at the beginning of the podcast, but after this week, we're going to have a really good idea as to where a lot of teams lie, and I think the Buccaneers fall into that pool of after this week, we're going to know where they're at. If they win this game, they're legit Super Bowl contenders. If they get blown out, they're pretenders, but maybe could win the NFC South and host a playoff game. And if they just are competitive with Baltimore, I think they're a legit playoff team that you got to take seriously. I'm also excited to see Derrick Henry and Vita Vea meet in the middle.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's gonna be bouncing a lot of runs to the outside. You can bookmark that. He's definitely gonna be. He's not gonna be running up the middle as much as he was on the Commanders and all these other teams he's been playing. I can tell you that much. Vita Vea is the real deal.
Yeah. Do you think the Buccaneers defense can? Well, I guess maybe I should just ask. Do you think any defense is capable of containing Lamar and Derrick Henry? Because it didn't even feel fair to the Buccaneers. Because then when you go no, well, is it no because it's the Buccaneers or no because nobody can?
I mean, I think it could happen on a Sunday. I think it could happen.
This game's on a Monday, so.
Tampa. I think it can happen on any given game, man. It just takes the game planning. But the fact that the passing game for the Buccaneers is just so good this year, maybe they abandon. Maybe the Ravens can get down a score 10 points and maybe they're forced to throw the ball. And
yeah,
maybe that
Ravens fans will be having flashbacks to the AFC Championship, go down 7-0 and just throw the run game out the window.
Yeah, I mean, they haven't been down by 10 points a lot this year. So, I mean, who knows, man? Maybe Baker, the key to this game is they're going to have to get off to a hot start if they're going to win this game. And then at that point,
you think if the Buccaneers win the coin toss, they should receive? They should try and go get points up on the board first?
Oh, no. No.
Still defer.
Yeah.
I mean, this is still a Todd Bowles coach team.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that is true. But nah, man. Go tell your defense to make a mistake. Their defense is good too, man. So,
yeah. I'm not, I wasn't trying to discredit nobody. But, playing with a lead against Baltimore, all of a sudden Baltimore doesn't have a good opening drive. Tampa goes and scores again. It could be 14-0 just like that if you get the ball first.
Yeah.
And you get to 14-0. Things could look as gross as it did versus Philly. That's what they did to the Eagles. They got up more than 14-0, but the Eagles, I'm just saying, after the first quarter, it was a competitive game. The problem was in the first quarter, Tampa just blew the doors off the building, and their offense has that ability. So I wouldn't count that out as a potential possibility in this game. Baker versus Lamar, a quarterback matchup we thought we were going to see for years when the Browns drafted Baker number 1 overall. I'm excited to see it again. Are you going Baltimore or are you going Tampa in this game?
I'm going to go Baltimore, man. I ain't going to lie. I'm going to go Baltimore. It's something about a team with a good run game. I don't know what it is, man.
So I'm also going to go Baltimore, and it's the regular season, so we'll see. This philosophy is more so for postseason, but I got the quarterback advantage in Baltimore. I think I got the better head coach in Baltimore, and I got the offensive player of the year in Derrick Henry. That's enough for me. I also think Baltimore's defense has sneaky started to figure some things out over the past couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And Baker, he's having a great season, but you could force him into some turnovers.
Yeah.
I think the Ravens defense has the ability to make.
I mean, he threw like 3 picks in like the first half last game, right? 2 or 3 interceptions.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, you can force him into some interceptions. The thing with Baltimore versus Jaden Daniels is Jaden Daniels doesn't get baited into mistakes. I think Baker Mayfield, he's got that gunslinger Favre mentality, which is cool when it's working, and when you're on fire, you're in MVP conversations early in the season. But there's also a slippery slope of, I'll throw it anywhere, anytime. Oh, yeah? Even right to Marlon Humphrey and Kyle Hamilton, will you? But I just think Baltimore, and it's nothing against Tampa, but Baltimore has an ability like no other team to control the clock and control the game with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. And the duo is working as flawlessly as they could have expected to open the season. And there's a world where we're talking about the 6-0 Ravens right now. If Likely wears a shoe size smaller and they get that 2-point conversion and then they don't blow a 10-point lead at home to Gardner Minshew, all of a sudden they're 6-0.
Forgot that even happened.
Yeah, well, that's how good they've played over the last month. But those are the 5 most must-watch games. Be sure to drop your predictions in the comment section. If you made it this far, make sure you hit the subscribe button as we continue to grow this podcast channel. More clips will be on the way, but if you made it this far, you're probably not going to watch the clips because you watched the whole podcast. But we appreciate you anyways. Leave your picks in the comment section. We'll catch you guys Monday for the reactions recap episode. Peace out.